Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We'll let everyone get settled in and then we'll start this presentation. We have four great producers from Germany and Bordeaux that we want to meet and spend time with today. So we'll let you settle in and we'll get started. Well, welcome everyone. Oh, it's so great to see so many of your faces today. Thanks for being on camera with us. That's fantastic. We definitely want this to be very interactive. We want you to ask questions of these producers. Feel free to offer to give your thoughts and feedback on these wines. This is Clink different. I've been able to host, I think, 6 of these now, and they've all been really fantastic, very, very interesting. You know, we're pairing wines from Germany with wines from Bordeaux. It's probably not something that we would think to do normally, but this has really brought about some great conversation and just sort of some new ideas and a new way of looking at the wines of Germany and Bordeaux. So that's our whole concept today. Clink Differed is funded by the European Union. Like I said, I've been fortunate to participate in a number of these now, and it's been fascinating. Okay, fantastic. I think we're all here. So I'm going to jump back over to the presentation and do a little bit of housekeeping and then introduce our fantastic panel today. So let me jump back to this presentation. Great. So let's jump in here. We wanted to remind you that this presentation is being recorded for quality purposes. So just to be aware of that. We definitely encourage your participation throughout the presentation. So feel free to type your questions or comments into the chat. Our panel will do their best to answer those throughout the presentation. We've also left a little bit of time towards the end just for some Q&A. So we encourage your comments, your questions throughout. And if you don't feel like typing those questions into the chat, even better, just come right on camera and ask your questions and give feedback about the wines. We'd like this to be very, very interactive. So just to get the chat warmed up, if you would like to taste with a producer, or you'll want to give some feedback on some of these wines, to say so in the chat just to get the chat all warmed up. But we want to now introduce our fantastic team of experts today. I'm very happy to introduce Johannes Selbach, one of the great Riesling producers of the Mosel. Johannes, say hello.
Hello, everybody. This is greetings from the Mosel, where it's dark already. And I understand it's early morning for you, or shall we say late morning time for a glass of wine.
Yes, it's definitely time for a glass of wine. Thanks, Johannes. We also have Mary Sandefer from Domaine de la Tourbaille. Mary, would you say hello?
Happy to say hello. Very happy to have this opportunity. And as you can tell, I'm American. My husband is French, and it's going to be very nice to talk to some people from Georgia.
Fantastic. So Mary is joining us from Juillac in the Entre-deux-Mers. We also have an old friend of mine, Patrick Languth. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Jesse. Hi, everyone in Georgia. Also sending my regards from the River Moselle. Johannes and I are basically neighbors, 15 kilometers or maybe 10 miles down the road. So we are both looking in the darkness, but enjoying a nice glass of Riesling today, together with you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We also have Damien Boudet from Chateau La Verrière. Damien, please say hello.
Hey, hi, everybody. Hi from Bordeaux, where I'm very pleased to talk with you today, and hi to Georgia, and I hope we'll have a good time together, and hope to show you the good secret of Chateau La Verrière, and let's have a good chat later on.
Fantastic. We've sent you 6 wines today. Oftentimes we will have 6 producers with us today. Just due to the timing of the time of year, we just have our 4 panelists today. So we have we had hoped Jean-Guy Todeschini would be here from Chateau Margaux, and of course Uli Stein from Weingut Stein are not able to join us, but we still want to present the wines. We've sent you those bottles, so I'll make a short introduction of those wines, and we'll use our time today to speak to our four panelists for the most part. So this is the agenda for the day. What I've done is just to sort of spark some conversation, I've selected some topics. I've paired one producer from Germany with one from Bordeaux to sort of tackle these things that have been on my mind at least. So we'll talk about the influence of soil on taste with Johannes and Mary. I want to talk about classic styles for modern markets with Patrick and Damian. And then maybe as a group, we'll discuss this idea of bringing the landscape into the bottle. And of course, we'll do our best to have a little time towards the end for any additional Q&A. So this whole concept, these virtual trips, we would like nothing more than to take you to Germany and Bordeaux to meet and taste with these producers in Europe. But since we're unable to do that, we're doing this virtually. And so we're doing that through Google Maps. And to introduce our first two producers in this first topic that I've selected, let's first find our wineries on the map. So first, let's go to the Mosel region. And of course, I should have just said that, of course, we're talking about Bordeaux, and most of the German wine regions are in the southwestern part of those two countries. And if we zoom into the Mosel, where all three of our wineries are located today, you can find them there on the map. So Selbach is actually in this fantastic middle Mosel village of Zeltingen, which I'll show you here, which is sort of the classic, really steep slopes of the Mosel with, of course, slate soils. I'm going to let Johannes tell you all about his region, his village, but that's the location of the Selbach Öster winery in Zeltingen. Love that picture there of those individually staked vines in Zeltingen. Just a quick look at the winery here. So we also want to locate our first producer from Bordeaux. So this is Domaine de la Tourbaille, and they are located in the Entre-deux-Mers region in the village of Juillac. And as you can see here, of course, Entre-deux-Mers is between the Dordogne and the Garonne rivers. And in fact, we're very, very close to the Dordogne River here with Domaine de la Tourbaille. So once again, I'll have Mary tell you all about their specific area, their terroir. But just to have a quick, fantastic aerial view of where we're located, very, very close to the Dordogne River. And I thought, Mary, you'll have to tell me about this picture because I found this on the internet, but is that the lead enologist there? You'll have to fill us in on that.
He's our best.
Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do is hand the floor over to, first of all, with Johannes Selbach to introduce himself, tell us about his region, his village, and the wine that we'll be tasting from it.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everybody, and welcome. A quick introduction is always difficult for a wine person who is, shall we say, enthusiastic about the region and the wines, so you may have to cut me off. Thank you for choosing.
The floor is yours.
Thank you for choosing the Mosel, which is arguably the oldest German wine growing region with wine tradition dating back to pre-Roman times. So the Celtic people prior to the Romans were already making alcoholic beverages using grapes. The Mosel is in the southwest of Germany, and it's a long winding river, originates in France and empties into the Rhine at Koblenz in Germany. And the part that is represented today is the slate part of the Mosel region, where we have mostly blue Devonian slate, and this is something that really greatly influences the wines. Our family, like many families in this, shall we say, rural area, you could call us the Wild West of Germany, not many big cities, no big industry, very picturesque, beautiful thank goodness, not developed. So you can have a very good time here with good quality of life, excellent wines and food. We have been doing this for a little over 400 years, and there are families who've been doing it for even longer, but we have records going back to 1600s. Viticulture in the Mosel is restricted, or used to be restricted, to the steep slopes where the river gnawed away the fertile soil and where the barren rock stands out, so to speak, and where the vines have to dig deep into the slate. This is something that is very unique in the Mosel. You find it in parts of the Rhine. You also find it in the Douro, in the Rhone. But if you look at the terroir, we are on very steep inclines. The planting in the old vineyards is very narrow. We have 10,000 vines to the hectare. And courtesy of the slate, we have not had much problems with phylloxera yet. So there's a high proportion of ungrafted vines that still produce today. The region has an excellent reputation. And if you look at German wines in the world markets, Mosel is always amongst the German wines that are available. And Mosel is also the home to Riesling. Maybe a word on the wine that we're tasting today. There was a little, shall we say, accident or oversight. So we're not tasting Riesling as planned, but we're tasting a rather, shall we say, exotic grape for the Mosel. It's a Pinot Blanc or Weißburgunder, which happens to be available in Georgia. So that's how it slipped into the case. And it's a dry Pinot Blanc today. But nevertheless, it thrives in slate. It's a neighbor to some very good Riesling wines. And so we can certainly talk about this wine too. About the winemaking in our family, this is a very traditional approach that we take. Basically, like if you go to the market, and the chefs and the hobby chefs will understand, the better the raw material, the better the final outcome. And when it comes to Mosel winemaking, since we're Riesling country, and in our family on the 24 hectares of vineyards that we farm, we have 93% Riesling. So Riesling really rules, but the same philosophy applies to the Pinot Blanc. Means very careful farming. We do a part organic and the other part sustainable, controlled sustainable. We have a state-sponsored program of sustainable farming. We hand harvest. We crush gently. We use zero fining. So the wines, long before vegan became something that people speak about and write on labels, the wines have been vegan. So no bentonite, no gelatin, and we do not use cultured yeast. So it all goes with wild yeast. Fermentation takes place in either stainless steel or old Fuder barrels, and the Fuder barrels are made from German oak. A Fuder holds approximately 1,000 liters, and we leave the wines alone. That doesn't mean that we don't check and guide them, but technically speaking, there is not much winemaking. So it's a very simplistic approach where the terroir really should speak, and if we do it well, it does speak. And if nature cooperates, we can make some delicious wines. What outsiders probably don't know, the Mosel is, because it's an old wine growing region, and because we're close to France and the Germans and the French visited each other, not always in peaceful intentions over the centuries, we have, adapted a lot of the French tradition, and in particular the Code Napoleon, and with that the French inheritance law. So if you travel the Mosel, you will see that the vineyards are split into, a multitude of small parcels. So in the structure here is many small family businesses owning many small parcels, which results in a multitude of wines with a very, low volumes. And in a sense, we're the cousins of Burgundy, and terroir plays a very, very important role. So the place where the vines grow does mean a lot to us, and it actually expresses itself in the wines. And speaking about soil, slate is what makes the wine special here in the central part of the Mosel. Obviously, If you have a poor soil, the vine needs to dig deep in order to survive, and you get small berries, you get very little juice, but it's very concentrated and has a lot of flavor. And being on the 50th degree of latitude, mind you, that's, Vancouver, BC, we have a very long growing season. The Gulf Stream creates a mild climate, so we are dealing with mild temperatures and a long growing season, resulting in wines that have a lot of flavor and elegance without too much alcohol, which has become a real bonus in recent years with the temperatures rising. I don't know whether we should speak about the wine already or whether there's some comments.
Yes. In fact, I saw Samantha was tasting this wine. Samantha, if you'd love to give, it doesn't have to be like a master of wine style tasting, but just some feedback tasting this Pinot Blanc or Weissburgunder from the Mosel.
Yeah, I was just going through the virtual trip that we got, which was a cool addition. I really liked it. The minerality, I can taste the slate. It's kind of like a muted minerality, but like in a nice even keel way. And the acidity really evens out the body nicely. I get like those citrus notes. I get the minerality. I get some florals. Yeah, and the color also is really nice as well. That golden color.
It's thanks for that. Johannes, it's a warm vintage, isn't it? 2018, but we still have incredible freshness. It's just 12.5% alcohol. This is the region. It's also probably the slate soil.
It's a combination of many, and I must say I'm happy to taste the 18 Pinot Blanc, which is sold out here in Germany, and to see it's in perfect shape. And you're right, 18 was a very warm vintage, a very dry vintage, and it was touted as soft and overripe, and the wines were supposed to not last very long. All wrong. This is maybe true elsewhere, but in the Mosel, that's what I just mentioned. With that if the temperatures are hot, we still have shall we say a cooling breeze, or we have the river that eventually tempers the climate. And one factor is super important. The slate soil is an ancient sedimentary rock of a subtropical ocean, some 440 million to 400 million years ago. It was created basically by sediment being compressed, and later when the continents shifted, it was folded up. It's low pH, and the low pH in the soil, natural pH is 5.2 to 5.5. Gives our wines, even in a warm, ripe vintage with analytically low acid levels, very stable pHs around or below 3, which keep the wines together and which, make them, I shouldn't say indestructible, but really very long lasting, even so when you have a vintage like 2003 or 2018. Now comes the human influence. We are firm believers in classic Mosel style. And if you come to the Mosel, what has made the Mosel famous is being chiseled, is being multifaceted and elegant, and always with noticeable acidity, which keeps them together. And that's why the Mosel has a reputation for making both dry and sweet wines. And the pH and the acidity combination is what makes this possible. So this is a very good example of a shall we say, a softer varietal than Riesling in a very warm vintage, which is still showing very nicely. And that's courtesy of the terroir, of the slate soil, because this vineyard is planted in Blue Devonian slate.
Fantastic. And we wanted to let everyone on this call know that of course, Johannes is a Riesling specialist, being from Zeltingen in the Mosel, and we've sent everybody a bottle of his estate cabinet Riesling, so you will be able to taste that as well. But fun to try Weissburgunder or Pinot Blanc from the Mosel with you today, Johannes. Thank you so much.
Sure, pleasure.
Thank you. And Mary Sendifer, I want to hand the floor over to you to introduce yourself and tell us about the wine that we're tasting from you today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. This is, you'll be tasting today our 2015 which, as you know, in Bordeaux was a really wonderful year. We had a great summer. It was warm and dry, and then a very long after season, and it allowed us to harvest in even into the middle of October. And we feel very lucky to still have some 2015 left because it was such a great year in Bordeaux. About our family, La Torbay we're a French-American family. I'm American and my husband, John, is French. And it has been in our family for about 100 years. It came to us because John's great uncle was a World War I hero, and he was wounded and couldn't have children. So he decided not to go back to Paris, and he wanted to find some good land where he could work a farm and heal. So he chose this area, and as Johannes has just been talking about, this proximity to a river and the composition of the soil has made our particular part of the Gironde a very advantageous place for growing wine. And as Johannes was saying, this little region of Saint-Emilion, just like, I'm sorry, where's Juillac, is very similar to Saint-Emilion because it's on a very particular kind of hilltop above the Dordogne on a bedrock of flint and limestone, which allows the minerals to go through the earth and into the roots of the vine. When John's great uncle, bequeathed the property to his niece, that was John's mother, and she, during World War II, met John's father, who was a naval officer, and when the war ended, they decided to make this their home. And we decided to leave New York, where we'd been living, and we were transported to London. We lived a long time in Paris, but this was always our home, the family domain. And our children also were educated in France, but they all went to the States and did their education and began their careers there. And when we decided at the death of John's parents to take over the property and make the wine ourselves, it was a big career change for us. We completely left behind the careers we had. I'm a writer and John was an IT consultant to start something that we felt that was going to be meaningful. And most importantly, we wanted this beautiful land to stay in the family because like the Moselle region, Little Juillac also has vestiges of the Celtic and the Roman ruins. It was a winemaking area well, over 2,000 years ago. So what we didn't know is when we started this project and our kids were in the States, they said, well, that's really cool. We want to grow wine too. So they came back one by one. Our daughter was in New York and she came back and she's been helping us with marketing at the beginning. Our son Julien was in Boston and he finished he did his agricultural degree here to take over the vineyard. And our youngest son was in biology and he's now doing his master's degree in a specialty in mushrooms and soil. I'm sure you've heard about the importance of soil remediation after the impact of industrial agriculture all over the world, but especially with vineyards. And so his specialty as a consultant with us will be to reinvigorate the earth. And one of those components is the use of mycorrhizae, which are the symbiosis between mushrooms and plants. Where the terroir is, as I said, it's on the top of a hill, high altitude, as high altitude as we can get here on the Dordogne. The bedrock is limestone and silex, and the soil is limestone clay. And as you probably know, the clay helps retain the moisture during a hot season so that the plants don't suffer too much hydric stress. And the limestone helps release a sort of bit of minerality into the wine, the minerals, the nutrients, and this particular terroir is especially suited to our 3 cépages that we have on the property, which is Classic Bordeaux, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cabernet Franc. Now, the Merlot is our dominant varietal, which you'll taste in the wine. It's about 60%. No, I think it's actually 85% in this vintage, and about 20% Cabernet Sauvignon. We like the Merlot here because it's so, it offers the richness and the freshness, kind of a juicy kind of mouthfeel for the wine. The Cabernet Sauvignon we're thrilled about because it offers an old-fashioned kind of structure and longevity. And we were pleased this was the first year that we actually harvested our Cabernet Franc, because we had been told that it was such a finicky varietal outside of Saint-Emilion and outside of the Loire. Well, we were very happily surprised because it thrives here and it offers a nice little elegance and finesse, and even a little, I don't know if you'll have your own impressions of the wine, but a little hint of violets. That's what we think.
It's
We also,
it really. Oh, no, please go ahead, Mary.
No, well, I just wanted to before I finished with the tasting of the wine, I also wanted to indicate that the whole point of our wine is that it's supposed to be tasted with food. And what I like about tasting red wines that have kind of a medium body, it makes the food more delicious. And so we try to serve our wine with meats, poultry, cheeses, and it's also really nice with chocolate. Our children helped us open a restaurant on the property a few years ago. It's a tavern. It's on, again, on the hilltop. It has a beautiful view of the Dordogne, and it's sort of a relaxed, casual place for wine tastings, tapas. Our daughter-in-law is Brazilian Japanese, so there's a lot of languages that get spoken here. And if any of you are ever in this region, I know you'll be at Saint-Emilion. We're only 20 minutes upstream. You can paddle a boat down here and come see us. We'd love to have you for dinner here at the end of the day. Yes, if anybody, I wanted, later on I'll talk about the biodiversity because that's another aspect of our farm that is very important to us, because this particular farm, like a lot of farms in Gironde, used to be polyculture farms, that people didn't just have a monoculture of a vineyard. There were cows, there were horses. We still have cows and horses in our prairies. They had other crops. They were often self-sufficient. And that's what, with our sons who are both in agriculture, is something that we're beginning to explore. We're very pleased about the luck we have of biodiversity here, because the vineyard is surrounded by forests, oak forests, with 2 streams that cut through the land, with prairies, meadows, and we encourage wildlife. You can hear the owls at night and the hawks during the day that are overhead. And we are continually thrilled and frustrated by the swallows and the bats who live in our barns, because they can eat so many of the particular kind of, they call them cicadelles, which come, and if we can use bats and other insects to help us avoid using pesticides, it's one of the reasons why we feel so lucky to be surrounded by forests and pastures. So anyway, if you have, yeah, sorry.
Mary, you've painted the picture of the place beautifully, and I always say this about a great Bordeaux Superior like this one. You know, it could be technically from anywhere in Bordeaux, but it almost always comes from a very special terroir, and so this is the image I now have in my mind. I thought I would ask. I can see Catherine Pike tasting this wine. I think she was taking some notes. I just thought I'd ask if she'd like to give some feedback on the wine that she's tasting, the 2015 Domaine La Tobaye.
Beautiful. Has a lot of very finesse. I'm getting, dried black currants, dried blackberries, maybe a little bit of black olive on the nose.
Oh, I like the black olive.
Yeah, a little bit there. Just that beautiful kind of like that gravitas, that note of gravitas there, which is so lovely. And the palate, so silky, so smooth, and yet it's got oomph, which I really enjoy. And I can see this being absolutely exquisite with all of the food that you described. I'm tasting that in my palate too simultaneously, and I'm having a great calorie-free virtual meal, except for the calories of the wine, of course. But because it has no calories, it's a fun meal.
We have a lot of hunting on our property, and there we have a lot of deer and boar. So tonight we're having shepherd's pie with the boar that the hunters gave us a few days ago. And I know that hunting is kind of controversial, but it's very important here to maintain the diversity in the balance of the animals. So it tastes wonderful. If you have a chance to have game or yeah.
I'm seeing venison medallions with these, just something, what do you call it? Meat parts are foreign to me at the moment. My husband's gone vegan, so I'm doing vegan food to support him. Gosh darn. And my brother is a hunter. And so he used to give us these, the tenderloin, that's what I'm trying to say. The venison tenderloin with this wouldn't that be great?
It's the best. If you can get the belly, that's the best. Yeah. And so
Sounds
what
excellent to me. As a sommelier, it sounds good to me. By the way, we're doing our job. If the whole point of wine and is to make us hungry and to go with food, I'm getting very, very hungry right now. So thank you, Catherine, for that. And Mary, thank you for presenting your wine. I wanted to move on to our next two wines and our next two producers. So let me jump back to my presentation here so I can take you there virtually. By the way, the technical details of the wines, we've already talked about this, but Mary, I found 70% Merlot on the website, but you said it's maybe more like 80% in this vintage, but all in stainless steel. We had that right.
Yes, stainless steel.
Yeah, very, very fresh and pure. So thanks for that. I want to introduce our next two producers and our next topic that I'd like to discuss. So I'll take you to the Ulrich Languth Winery and also to La Verrière also in the Entre-deux-Mers to talk about this next topic. So let's travel there. We're still on the Mosel here. All three of our German producers today are on the Mosel. We're going to Traben-Trarbach, and where we'll find the Ulrich Languth Winery. So just a quick look at the historic part of the winery and the historic part of the cellar. I imagine there's some modern stainless steel tanks in this cellar as well. But we'll be tasting with Patrick Languth in just a moment. I also wanted to take you to Château La Verrière, also in the Entre-deux-Mers in Landerrois. Hope I pronounced that correctly, but we'll find them here on the map. Quite far east in the Entre-deux-Mers region, quite far east in the region of Bordeaux, but you can see them there. Damien, you'll have to tell us how far are you from the city of Bordeaux?
Yeah, it's at least 1 hour and a half drive, so it's worth the journey, but it's quite a journey. So it's a good. You make a stop at Saint-Emilion, then you go to Château La Verrière, and then you ended up in some small villages like Duras or Sainte-Foy-la-Grande in the area. So it's worth the trip. So we'll be happy to see you there.
Yeah, I hadn't mentioned this earlier, but if you put all of the vineyards of Germany together, the region of Bordeaux is still bigger. So you actually have to plan your visits well, because it can be the next winery can be an hour or two away, and when you're visiting Bordeaux. Okay, so just a quick look at the winery there, located in Landerrois, in the Entre-deux-Mers region. In fact, Damien, you'll tell us all about the property, the two owners that we see here. But let me start, I think, with Patrick to tell us a bit about yourself, the winery, and the wine that we'll be tasting.
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure to have you here on the Mosel, and you see the real steep slopes right here. So this is what actually the Mosel is all about: very steep slopes that cannot be run by machine. So that's the core of what our passion is all about here in the Mosel. And honestly speaking, if I could probably repeat everything that Johannes just said, according to our winemaking and the terroir. So I thought I focus a little bit on the history of where I'm located. So in fact, Traben-Trarbach is one of the most famous villages on the River Moselle for wine making and wine trading. You know, in the around 1900s, you know, the Art Deco time, Traben-Trabach, the village was very well connected to the Bordeaux area, in fact, and we were the second largest wine trading village in the world after Bordeaux. So that's a long, long history. And in fact, my family used to have very good relations to some of the Grand Cru houses. My father, in fact, was very much related to the house Schröder-Schüler and learned his winemaking facilities in Bordeaux and later on in Burgundy. That's the time of where the peak of winemaking here in the Mosel was, when wines from the Mosel were more expensive or at the same price points as Bordeaux and Burgundy wines. So those were classic wines, classic styles. Our family built our cellars in that time. The picture you just saw it's a Art Deco building from a famous architect that also did a lot of famous buildings here in this village. So we have a traditional cellar built around 1900. And you saw all these big caves. Of course, tradition and classic winemaking, classic styles is very important for us. But time moves on, and every day you don't make a step forward. It's a day where you make a step back. Obviously, in our cellars, as you just mentioned, Jesse, we do have next to our classic Mosel Fuder barrels, classic 100-liter barrels that actually were used for transportation at older times as well, because you could actually roll these barrels very nicely, like the barrels you use in Bordeaux. So we use, as what I said, we use the classic barrels, but we also use stainless steel. And of course, we also have temperature controlled winemaking. Even though our cellars are very cool in harvest, we keep temperature controlled fermentation. And that is important because, as Johannes also said, we don't use artificial yeast in our wines. So we try to keep nature as much as possible. Not only that we cannot use machines on our premium wines, you know, but we also select our basic wines with totally by hand. So also this Riesling that you're having in your glass right there is manually selected, and which is very important for us. But the soil is what it's all about, and we have these wines are made from classic gray Devonian slate. This is partially from behind my estate here in Traben-Trabach, on the same grounds where Markus Molitor makes his famous wines, but also it's partially from steep slopes into the direction of Enkirch. So it's basically a blend of not so steep slopes and steep slopes, but all definitely Devonian slate. And as also Hugh Johnson already said, the Riesling is the queen of all white wines because it reacts to the soil. And this, you can, in my opinion, on this wine, you actually taste the minerals very strongly. This is a complexity of a nice balance of acidity and residual sugar. So modern markets, in my opinion, don't need just 100% dry wines, but they need some taste to it, And we in Germany or in the Moselle, so we try to boost our dry style wines, which have the backbone is the acidity, and the backbone needs to be boosted a little bit, not by a COVID-19 third shot, but by residual sugar. And so this wine has 8 grams residual sugar, blended with a nice acidity of 7.5. So this is a really nice texture. And as Johannes just said, I'm very happy to have this 2018 here in the glasses. I kept some of the wines in my cellars, because I tend to try to taste our older vintages. In my Rotarian club yesterday night, one of our old members tasted us on 1966 Lancaster Doctor, and so old vintages are really something that people should, be enjoying. And a good Riesling, even a good dry Riesling, can taste minimum up to 10 years. So I would the aging potential of this wine is minimum 5, but up to 10 years. And I think on this specific wine here, it's still fresh as a daisy, and you can actually keep it for another couple of years until it's on the peak and it's fully balanced.
Patrick, I mean,
yeah.
My colleague Andrea Robinson can probably back me up on this, but maybe 15, 20 years ago, this idea of dry Mosel was, I'm not even sure I would have considered it for a wine list 20 years ago, but these days, beautiful wines. Maybe Andrea could give a few thoughts on this dry Riesling we're tasting from Languth.
Unmuting there. Wow. I completely agree. And I think it's a great thing for Riesling that the label is super clear. And then when people, I think, put it in the glass, they're going to get that real jolt of surprise and delight and originality. This is full on lime sherbet and, a little bit of lanolin, a lot of floral, very mineral. And I just think that you were talking about food before, and I'm immediately thinking of getting a thing of fresh ginger and grating that with some curry powder and some I don't know what's, it's probably going to be just a bunch of vegetables in there, but that's definitely happening today. I just think that would be an amazing combination with this, and it's just a beautiful layered aromatic and expressive and elegant wine. And I wish we could fast forward 20 years and just see what would happen. But I've tasted some older ones, older great Rieslings with Johannes and Barbara. And I remember, and I don't know if you agree with this, Patrick, but we all agreed that they sometimes get to a point of spearmint. Like you actually get to spearmint and consomme in the glass at some point. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that. But anyway, but right now we've got the fresh and pretty and screaming for food.
But by the way, Mary,
Thanks,
I want to mention that Johannes and I are both hunters as well. So we tend to shoot the wild boar that are trying to eat our grapes in harvest time. Which happened quite a bit this year as well, unfortunately. We next time maybe for Vinexpo, which doesn't happen anymore, internationally wise. But when we come to Bordeaux, we just bring our rifles and then we help you hunting over there a little bit. And then I will bring you my specialty. I also have a Riesling, especially made for venison that I created myself in 2015. It's an Auslese off-dry, which I think perfectly fits well for venison as well. So Riesling actually fits to any kind of food if you make it the way Riesling can be done, from bone dry to noble sweet. So that's the great advantage of our Riesling that both Johannes and I have a passion for. That's why I'm in the wine business. I'm only my family's in the 1700s as well in the wine, but I came back from being a lawyer and working 10 years in banking, before coming back to the nice world, nice business world, which is mine, So and be together with happy people here. So let's enjoy it. Thanks for being together,
Patrick.
And regards to Georgia.
Patrick, thank you so much. We want to jump over to Damien Boudet to talk about La Verrière. Damien, I'll have you introduce yourself and the wine that we'll be tasting.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Georgia. My name is Damien. I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm here on behalf of my good friend and partner Alain Besset and his wife, who are who run the Chateau La Verrière. So I'm happy to present them this wine on their behalf because they would be very happy to be here, but they don't speak any English. So the frustration is very high, but so that's so. I won't be making a lecture, and so don't hesitate to stop me anytime and ask questions. So basically, La Verrière is a family estate, as you can find a lot of them in Bordeaux, and it's the fourth generation, but it's really started in the 60s, where Alain, so the guy we saw on the picture earlier, Alain's father planted the vineyard. He replanted everything. He started with a few hectares, and he selected only the best slopes, south-oriented. Before that, they were doing polyculture, as was often the case in Bordeaux, and they started to focus on only vineyard. And so it was in the 60s, and Alain's father, André, is still there. He's 78 now and still driving the tractor every day. So he's helping, and it's good. So when they planted, they wanted to make sure that the parcel were very well drained. So the soil there is mainly clay. And as you know, clay keeps the water. So we don't want to keep too much water because the vines don't like too much humidity. But it's good in the winter, in the summer, to keep a little bit of water. So because Chateau La Verrière, as you've seen on the map, is like in the far eastern part of the Entre-deux-Mers area. It's like a few kilometers away from at the border of Bergerac and Duras area. So it's a long drive from Bordeaux, and so we are also very far from the ocean. So the oceanic influence is a bit less obvious than in other area of Bordeaux, and it's a rather high altitude. It's like 400 feet high altitude, so one of the top altitude of the area as well. So it is slightly drier, slightly warmer, so it's good to grow grapes. And also in this area there is less agriculture and less vineyard than in other area. Because in the Entre-deux-Mers there are a lot of vineyards, so having less culture gives more space to forests and more space to biodiversity, and which is the case, and it's very important at Chateau La Verrière. Environment and biodiversity are very important. They have always been doing sustainable viticulture, and now we've officially converted to organic viticulture. So it's another step, and yeah, before that we've only used organic manure for the last decades, and also we keep the grass between the rows. We plant legumes between the rows in the winter to enrich the soil and to capture the carbon and the nitrogen, and we also have bees in the close to the vineyard, meaning that and bees are very they can suffer from the chemicals. So, and our bees are in very good form at the moment. So it's a good sign of good wealth and good biodiversity. So Alain's motto is really to work in the vineyard. So because as all the producer could say, if you have good grapes, it's easier to make good wine. And so we seek for the optimum maturity, and for that, it's very important to have a good team, because working in the vineyard is not an easy job. So the whole family is working there, and we are very lucky because we have the employees. Some of them have been working here for like more than 30 years. So it's this stability and this common passion it's helping to have a common target, which is quality. And it's quality and also its value, because we are not here to make a very confidential, a niche cuvée. We are here to make, it's a rather large estate now. It's now 80 hectares. So I think it's something like 400 acres. So it's starting to be a rather large estate, and we bottle. We are not ashamed to say that we bottle 500,000 bottle of wine, of 500,000 bottle at the estates, and the cuvée that we will be tasting is 20,000 cases a year, something like that. So it's.
And Damien, what is the cepage of this this vintage that we're tasting, 2018?
Yeah, the cepage, the blend is a majority of Merlot. It's 80%, 85%, depending on the vintages. This 18 vintage is 80%. And the rest is Cabernet Sauvignon. There's a little hint of Cab Franc, but we don't even add it on the back labels because it's coming from, it's 1 or 2%, but it's the very old vines planted in the 60s. So it's not producing a lot, but it adds this little complexity that we like in the wine.
And is there any oak here at all?
Yes, there is. Half of the, no, a bit more than half of the wine is aged in oak for 1 year. A third is renewed every year. And it has a lot of different coopers, and even some from America, some from different parts of France. And but another part of the blend is aged in stainless steel. So that when we make the final blend, we can adjust the level of oak influence that we want in the wine to make a steady quality, vintage after vintage. So it's
excellent. Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to see if maybe somebody from our audience would like to give their impressions of the wine. I saw Ophelia tasting there. Ophelia, would you like to just give a few words? It's not a master of wine style tasting.
Absolutely. Basically, what my very initial impression was incredible freshness and just brightness in the glass. It's a very approachable wine and very charming, if I may use the term. Also, I find that it's charming, but also elegant, very elegant. So it's very well balanced. And again, quite frankly, I know we've been talking about food wines, but this actually is. I think this goes both ways. I think this would go very well with food and would go also very well as almost like an aperitif, as at the beginning of a meal. If one wants, we have wine drinkers who only drink red wine, and this might be a nice way to open a meal. So those are my impressions.
Thanks a lot, Ophelia. It's very nice comments. So thanks.
Thank you.
And I totally agree with you. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, me too. I had the same impression, and this is what surprises me so much. We have a very hot vintage, really, 2018, and a very high percentage of Merlot, and yet the very first thing that comes to mind is exactly what Ophelia said: freshness. It's really it's impressive.
Well, thank you. It's the aim. It's really the aim. It's just to harvest ripe grapes, so you can extract the best out of the grapes to have an intense color, no green notes. We want to, and the wood is just like as a support to make it a bit more charming, a little bit of more appealing to the and a bit slightly more modern style as what we are having in Bordeaux in general. So definitely no harsh tannins. Really, the aim is to have something with a good structure, a good body, nice color, but nothing too complicated, nothing too harsh. Easy drinking, but good balance. And
well, I need to take at least a few minutes to at least introduce our two wines that we don't have the producer here, but they came in your kit, and we want to say something about the wine from Ulystein and Chateau Margaux. But just to finish our conversation with Patrick and Damien, maybe it's this, I have this theme, classic styles for modern markets. Maybe it's just this is kind of where our palates are now. We want this freshness and elegance from our wines, this sense of place. And I think both the Riesling from Languth and La Verrière capture this idea. But if you have any parting thoughts on that, we'd love to hear them. Oh, from Damien or
Yeah, Patrick.
I forgot to put on. So modern markets also need not only modern wines, but modern package. You know, so that's another thing where I come from a very traditional estate. That's very nice, and I mean, you're tasting this modern. You know, that's what I made it in the national package. You know, just for the market. You know. But I mean, at the moment, I'm selling my wines with a very classic label, and also Total Wine and More, you know. And I must say that that is old-fashioned. So some of you might have seen something up here. You know, I changed my logo, you know, in my family, and from 2018 to 2020 vintage. There will be a completely new package, you know, from my side, you know. So it's not only the traditional thinking of winemaking that we try to adopt to modern taste, you know. So it's we try to also give a message on the bottle. So this is going to be my new package. It's completely different, you know. It's Devonian slate on the color, you know. It's a gray slate color. And it gives the degree of the average of the slopes that I'm working with, you know, 36 degrees, you know, on the label. So that's what I'm saying. It's not only making we are making sustainable wine, controlled sustainable wines. You know, we try to make it very old, very clean, natural wines, as Johannes said. It's all about the soil. It's all about what we do in the vineyards, you know. But after all, it's all about marketing as well, you know. And for tradition, you know, nobody can you know. I cannot sell my tradition. I have to sell the quality. And I think the quality you saw in the bottle is modern. You know, you tasted in the bottle is modern. You know, the package, you know, needed refreshment, and so that's what I'm seeing. Classic styles, modern markets. I think. It's a good combination of this topic, Jesse, that you have chosen. And in fact, I've done this development from my estate, you know, from 2018 to 2020. It's a huge development for my century-old family, and to take off the family crest of the label. But I did it. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and a few words
Damien?
Yeah, I would like to answer Andrea's question. Like, I don't want to make it too just quickly about the vinification. It's only vinified in stainless steel tank with a lot of pumping overs, but very slowly, and so very slow extraction. Maceration lasts for this vintage 35 days, so it's rather long for the winery. So, and that's it. And then after the alcoholic fermentation, it's put in the barrel. We don't ferment. We don't do the alcoholic fermentation in the barrel. We do the malolactic in the barrel for the voila. And as for regarding the label, we also have a very traditional, very modern label. We changed it 10 years ago, and before that it was a very old-fashioned style of Bordeaux. And since that, we seem to have the perceived value of the wine seem to have increased. So, and journalists and like wine challenges have noticed us. So it's so the packaging is very important. So, and we remind the V label is always remembered.
La Verrière. You know, don't tell Uli Stein or Monsieur Todeschini, but I'm really happy. We had only 4 producers today, so we could spend more time with you. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but we did send 6 wines. And just to take you to the places, I'll jump back to the presentation, just 2 more minutes to introduce those last 2 wines, and then we need to say goodbye for today. So let me jump back over to the presentation and just share with you the wines that from Stein and Mongo. So let's take you there. We're still in the Mosel for for Stein. We're in a different part of the Mosel, however. This is the village of Boulay, where the winery is located. And here's a great shot of one of the very, very steep vineyards in Saint-Aldegonde. And then we wanted to just take you to Saint-Emilion, to Chateau Mango. And as you'll see, maybe you can find Saint-Emilion here. It's just really just a few minutes drive from the town of Saint-Emilion. And this is, I chose this picture. I wanted Mr. Todeschini to talk about this, but this is really important to the way the wines taste, this limestone soil. And I think we just get a great, great image of that with those those terraces there. And the wines that we were going to present to you from the Mosel, something completely different. This is Ona, and this means without, and it is made without any added sulfur. So of course, then the wine needs to be completely finished with its malolactic fermentation. And it's a 2017 vintage. It will be a completely different expression of the Mosel, but this is one of the things I love about Clink Different as we look at the whole picture from Germany and the whole picture from Bordeaux. And from Chateau Mango, classic Saint-Emilion. 80% Merlot. There's some Barrique here, but both of these wineries working, of course, in a very sustainable way, organic, even transitioning to certified organic in the case of Chateau Mango. So that's really the philosophy and idea behind these two wines. I want to thank everyone who was able to join us today. Thank you for attending and taking this hour with us to speak to these four great producers. And I need to say thank you to Johannes Selbach. Thank you, Johannes. I want to say thank you to Mary Sandifer. Yes, thank you. And Mary, thank you for taking the time. My friend Patrick Languth, thank you very much for the time. And Demian Boudet, thank you. See you.
You're welcome. See you next week. See you next week in Bordeaux.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for the time. There will be a survey. Please give us some feedback about this format, and so we can continue to do these in the future. But thank you to all.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Visit.